Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Modern Market. This is our daily show from Monday to Friday, where we go live to talk about the modern market. That is the crypto market, the NFT market, and how to make some and or a lot of money on the internet. I'm your host, Bchek. I'm joined by my legendary co-hosts, Legendary and Sammy. And today is a special show where we have a very special guest. We have the legend Zeneca with us, writer, collector, trader, angel investor, and founder of Zen Academy and the 333 Club. Delighted to have him with the show today. We're going to get into a special fantasy segment, of course, given that he's back on his 2021 spreadsheet vibes. We're going to go through some of those. And we're going to talk the rest of the market as well. So we're going to hit all of the headlines. Zeneca is going to be with all of that with us too. But before we get to all of that good stuff, just a reminder, friends, that nothing that we say here is financial advice because we don't know anything for sure. So please do proceed with caution and exercise your own judgment. With that out of the way, Legendary, it is Thursday. It's the 16th of May. How are you doing? How are you feeling?
GM, doing quite well. A lot of things to be excited about. The market is back. As you said, we have Zeneca with us on a very, very strategic day, just a couple of hours before the Commons tournament will start. I do have my Commons deck ready and prepared, but happy to hear and learn more throughout the show to see if I need to make some adjustments. So very excited for today.
Absolutely. Here to catch the alpha with Zeneca. Zeneca, welcome to the show, my friend. Great to have you with us. I've definitely had these types of conversations with you before in like different formats, different types of interviews. I think this is the first time you've joined with us up on stage in the show. Great to have you with us. How are you doing, my friend? What's up your side?
I'm doing really well. Thanks for having me. Yeah, excited to be here and chat with you guys about the market, fantasy, strategy. There's a lot happening in the space. There always is. And yeah, very excited to be here.
Good stuff. Can't wait to get into it with you in just a little bit. Sammy, checking in with you here. Fantasy tournament today, commons only. How are you feeling? What's your thinking at the moment?
I'm good, excited. I've picked quite a few little winners. I'm just trying to work out which one to sub in last minute to max out those 20 stars and hit that winning top 10 commons deck. So excited to get some strategy from Zen as well. Maybe it will define how I end up playing in the end. So it's good.
Nice. Well, if you share all the strategy here and the alpha, I'm gonna take the opposite side. I'm gonna do the reverse. Because I read some article about how you need some variance. If everyone's playing the same cards, you got to go alternative. But I wouldn't take my advice because I'm in the bronze tournament. So take that with a pinch of salt too.
It could all be a psyop. We play out strategies here and then do the exact opposite of what we're saying on stage. Who knows?
Yeah, a lot of hours before you finalize your deck. We're going to get into all of that in just a little bit. But before we get there, let's get into the headlines, as always, from the snapshot, which is pinned up top. If you find it brings you some value today, please do give it a like. We're going to start with price action, as always, sharing it with the people on screen. We're live on X video. We're live on YouTube as well. Price action. Bitcoin is up 7%, 66.3K. We are so back, clearly. ETH is also up 4% at 3K. Solana is up 13% at $163. I was literally saying yesterday, maybe I'm going to sell all my Solana for Bitcoin. I didn't do that. So kind of fortunate in that respect. Getting into the headlines, crypto is back. As I just mentioned, that price action definitely want to talk about. Sentiment has been terrible across the timeline for the last few days and has unsurprisingly flipped entirely within the space of 24 hours. So just want to get a sense check there of where we are. Next big news, Blast airdrop delays to 26th of June and 2 more gold distributions. NFT Stats revises his gold estimate down to $6. He is with us on stage as well. Cannot wait to hear how he has come to that number and just some reflections about the whole Blast farm, because we are all kind of stuck in the gold mine until for another month now. And finally, big headline for me, I think, Lucanet's tweet alludes to deal flow for Pudgy Penguin holders in collab with Kobe's Echo. Echo is kind of like a crowdfunding site where it brings people together and you're able to share deal flow with the intention of democratizing deal flow. And so it's not just going to all the KOLs that you can see on stage that you're listening to. So it can open up to a few more other people. So that's pretty interesting. That is one of the utilities of holding a big Pudgy Penguin. Want to dive into that in a little bit. Some more price action from The market, we've got CryptoPunks at 39.3, ETH down a couple of percent, Bored Apes at 13.6, Mutants at 2.6, DGods at 2, Captains at 3, Azuki's at 5.4, up a couple of percent, Penguins at 11.5, up a couple of percent, Mad Lads slipping again, down 6%, kind of going down with the Solana market at the moment, and the Nouns winning bid is at 6.5 ETH. Legendary, that is some price action. Those are the headlines. Anything catching your attention before we get into the bigger stuff today?
There's a couple of things standing out to me today. One is a bit of a continuation of the story we had yesterday with Pepe having another day where 24-hour volume on Pepe is higher than even on Solana, another $2.3 billion volume day for Pepe. In terms of NFTs, taking a look at the Mintify heat map, there's both interesting news to look at from the ETH and from the Blast side of things. On ETH, we yesterday did touch on the fact that we have seen this massive dump in the Pixelmon, as well as in the Pixelmon trainers collection. Both of them have kind of stabilized, with Pixelmons being at 1 ETH now. Again, the story for those who missed the show yesterday was that a very big wallet dumped all of their Pixelmon holdings into bids, selling Pixelmon even as low as 0.01 ETH, so as low as $30.
Absolutely insane.
And same for trainers. 10 Pixelmon, 20-ish trainers dumped at absolute low prices because there was just not enough bid liquidity. Yesterday was still speculating, is that a hack? Is that someone selling deliberately? The news was so fresh. Some people have pointed out in the chat yesterday that it wasn't a hack, it was a big whale doing that, and apparently that whale also left the whale chat for Pixelmon after doing that. But it does seem that the floor price has found a bit of stability after that. Switching over to the Blast side of things, we had 2 days full of red. Now with the postponing of the Blast TGE, there's actually a bit of green as people are taking some strategic positions. Biggest winner definitely the ships in the Captain Company collection being up, I think 60%, 65% over the last 24 hours even, as people probably want to double down on Captain Company as a potential gold farm, since we do have 2 more gold distributions until the postponed TGE in June.
Interesting stuff. Wildly volatile on the Blast side. Definitely want to come to Zen in a second, just for an opportunity to say anything that's kind of catching your attention in a minute, Zen. But Sammy, I think you wanted to come in on Captain and Company specifically.
Yeah, so that actually dumped probably 2 days ago, maybe even 24 hours ago. So it dumped pretty heavily. So a whale literally got rid of his complete position, wanted to get rid of it. So I think in the Wolves DAO chat, we were chatting in there, and one guy ended up having a ton of bids at about 0.2. So he scooped up a ton of ships at about that, and it's now 2x where it was. So
not bad.
yeah, so it looks like it's gone up significantly, but actually that was kind of a rebound from a previous sell-off. But yeah, it's a lucrative one. And actually, interestingly, a lot of the guys that have these ships, they've actually outsourced the management of them to offshore to get other people to run them for them for about $25 a day.
Wait, who's doing that?
So there's guilds that are being set up around this to run these ships to farm Blast gold for them. So it's like a net positive. So it's interesting to see. There's like a whole different economy
when guilds start getting set up, right?
Exactly. Yeah. It's wild.
Okay, interesting stuff. Zen, what about yourself? Anything catching your attention, either in terms of price action at the moment, or anything you've got your eye on in general? Any trends? Any particular projects?
Yeah, I mean, just on the guilds and Captain and Co stuff, like that's giving me Axie vibes from 2021, which was, everyone has these spreadsheets of, all right, I'm going to pay this much per hour, and I'm going to earn this much gold and this much, whatever token, and they extrapolate out for a year and be like, oh, I'm making $4 million a year, and then a month later it all crashes, and you see that all the time in this space. I mean, the market is bullish again. 2 days ago, it was all doom and gloom and bearish. That's just how things go in crypto. And Blast, there's a lot to get into with Blast, but I think the extension of the TGE and everything is, I'm like disappointed, but not surprised. It's sort of my reaction. And I mean, the whole Blast ecosystem, and Blur as well, but I think like Blast especially is so brutally PvP VP. I saw someone else say this. I didn't come up with it. Player versus Pac-Man, where like it's just like the goalposts keep moving. You get rugged from the side. There's farmers farming farmers. It's just chaos and dangerous, and you're playing with fire. You can definitely make money, but it's just extraordinarily levels of risk. I'm finding it a lot of fun myself, but I think that's probably partially because I didn't really farm much of anything in the last couple of years, so I don't have that same degree of burnout as there've been people that have been farming all seasons of Blur and then Blast, or they've been farming Blast since day one. And I think there's definitely some sentiment I'm seeing of people getting sick and fed up and tired of it. Whether or not that means they'll stop or not is TBD, especially since it seems like the earlier farmers are getting increasingly diluted. So it's like being early was not necessarily the best thing here, whereas someone can come in now and potentially reap a lot of the same rewards. But yeah, we'll see.
Okay, very, very interesting. I've definitely got some follow-up points on that, but let's deal with that in the Blast segment a little bit later, because we want to get into the fantasy top stuff right here, right now. Just so people know where the show's going today, we've got the Blast segment on the gold. Definitely want to touch on Zen's kind of talking about the wild risk on Blast at the moment, and even some strategies from risk management. So we'll do that in a bit. We'll talk about the Pudgy Penguins Echo news, and we'll also talk about general crypto being significantly higher than it was yesterday, and get a little sense check there. But right now we want to get into fantasy top. As we mentioned at the top of the show, Zen is back on his 2021 vibes with the spreadsheet, the famous spreadsheet. And I have in front of you here, for the people who are watching in, the original Google Doc minted as an NFT. No, not really. But I do have the proper version with us, and it's a sight to behold. We have the spreadsheets back. Zen, maybe first question, what got you so excited about Fantasy Top? We're going to get into the strategy. Obviously, there's a new tournament today. There's been some, again, volatility. We're going to talk about all of that in just a little bit too. But what got you so excited about Fantasy Top?
Yeah, fun is the number one word for me. I was sort of getting into the farming Blast and using Blast dApps sort of end of April, start of this month. And most of what I was doing was sort of just going through the motions with the goal of making some gold. And, you use this dApp, you use that, you some farm here, you put some in a vault here, you do some, actions on these different dApps. And it was more of a grind to just get that gold. And then Fantasy Top comes along and it was genuinely fun. Like I love games. I'm a lifetime gamer. And when it came out, I was like, there's something really cool and exciting here. And so I just got really just excited by it and got obsessed with it, and still am pretty excited and obsessed. And that's kind of why I sort of went all in. And when I'm that into something, I love data, I love stats, I love tracking things. I've been doing it, on my own for a lot of other things, but this is the first time since 2021 that it really made sense to maybe to share that publicly, because other people are going to be more interested in the floor price of things. The big difference between 21 is in 21, like you didn't have these great apps and websites and stats tracking things. With Fantasy Top, within like 2 or 3 days, some really great other apps popped up where you can go and see the floor price of stuff, which I use. Like I use them all the time. They're fantastic. But I think I still like personally having like that snapshot and like day to day, just like gut check, sentiment check of like, it's one thing to look at how the floor is compared to an hour ago and just like in real time, but then just getting that sense check every day for me gives me a good idea of like where the market is tracking and heading, and helps me in my buys and I say sells. I haven't sold anything yet, but theoretical sells.
Nice. So you're talking about like obviously going relatively all in towards the beginning, not making any sales at the moment. Where are we at for you? Like we've done, I think, is it one main tournament? There was like that flash tournament at the beginning. We've had another main tournament in the last few days. I think they had 2 consecutive days of all-time high volume. And it was like a wild proportion compared with the overall ETH NFT market. Like basically liquidity and attention is all here, right now. And I know as well from running the evening show with Thread Guy, like it's all people want to talk about. And even I guess people can notice even when you're tweeting as well, like the engagement is there. People want to know people's takes on this specific thing. Where do you think we are with it at the moment in terms of the game's development, the tournament structure, and even price action?
Yeah, we had those 2 consecutive days of all-time high marketplace volume, and then it was sort of basically immediately followed up with 2 days of prices crashing across the board, like 20 to 50%, which I think most people that have been in it we're expecting this to happen at some point. Nothing is up only forever, and it definitely had a lot of the bubbly, top-ish, or bubbly vibes. But the thing with bubbles is they can go a lot crazier before they pop, so no one really knew when it was coming. I think that we're at an interesting point in the life of fantasy where people are not making money every day now, and things are so much more fun when people are making money in general. So I think there are going to be some people now going, oh, my portfolio value is going down. I no longer as am excited by it as I was 3 days ago. And so it's TBD whether those people are still going to stick around, be engaged, they enjoy playing the game as much, if they're not just doubling their portfolio every day. And the other thing I think, which is probably even more important about the survival of this all, is the heroes. Because I've just, in the last like 24 hours, been seeing a lot of sentiment from heroes feeling like burned out, and because there's this whole quantity over quality element right now where it seems like the more you tweet, the better your performance. And that's just utterly unsustainable unless you're Franklin and you just record it. You become a clock, and every 5 minutes just an automated tweet goes out. So I think the team will probably
he got a sponsor for one.
Oh my God. I did not see that.
I think AVAC, was it AVAC sponsored him?
Yeah.
He said he's got another sponsor.
He is. I love Franklin. Like, this is performance art at this point. When I first saw it, I was like, this is weird and wacky, and I don't love it, but I've done a full 180. I absolutely love it. I think he's leaning into it, and he turned himself into a meme in a day. Like, that is not, I think you get 100 people and be like, turn yourself into a meme in a day. Almost none will be able to do it. It's really impressive. But yeah, I think that burnout is becoming real. And I saw a really good post by DCF God about how maybe they should basically take your best 5 or 10 performing tweets in the tournament period, and your rank will be based on that rather than the accumulation of 500 tweets, which will, if you get 500 tweets, you probably have a better chance of having 5 or 10 good performers. But it also doesn't really punish the people that might only want to post, a handful of times a day and still have some really good tweets, but who are currently seemingly punished under the current model.
Interesting stuff. Sammy, did you want to come in here?
So I find that sponsorship angle really interesting, because I think NBA Trey was one of the first ones to actually get a sponsor for Fantasy Top, and I think this is almost like you've got this digital real estate. So all of a sudden you've got a completely new angle where you can get in front of a crypto audience, which is it's another revenue stream for the heroes. I don't know if Fantasy Top will eventually take a kickback from that, but and then turn it back into like a rake back for potential players or whoever. But it's just a really interesting notion that I don't think we've yet properly explored. And I think the point around having 2 consecutive tournaments, I think Travis quote tweeted Otto saying that, well, what happens when there's 4 or 5? So I think there could be a supply squeeze on these common cards. I'm just concerned that more people will get priced out, and I think that inflation has to manage it, and that's something that I'll be monitoring for like sustainability purposes. But I'll be keen to get your views on that, Zen, as well, because I think you're obviously a big card holder, so I guess you would be the market maker on that side of things. But it'd be interesting to see like what you think about that whole process and the longevity, because I think you're an investor in Fantasy Top as well, so obviously have an interest in that being sustainable.
Yes, definitely. I have a lot of thoughts there. On the sort of sponsorship side, I think it's really cool that heroes are like just finding their own sponsors and just finding their own way to sort of bring in additional revenue streams. But something that the Fantasy Top team said maybe a week ago on a space was that potentially in the future they could get sponsors for their tournaments. Like, a lot of people have been like, well, what happens when the blast gold runs out? What happens when the incentives disappear? In theory, you could get a tournament sponsored by Kraken or Eigenlayer or anyone really. And that could add a bunch of money into a prize pool. And they, imagine if the amount of attention you get on Twitter by all these people tweeting about the project, if now there's a layer of sponsorship tied to that, I think that could be an interesting dynamic. And then in terms of the sort of supply shock and inflation elements and all of that, I agree. I think if we get multiple more tournaments running at once, there will definitely be this whole element of supply shock. But to me, based on just what we've seen this week, it sort of seems like it's becoming even more of a whales game. And I think that what really needs to happen is some solution whereby someone can feel like they have a chance to put together a deck and win some reasonable prices for 0.1 ETH or 0.2 ETH or potentially even less at some point in the future. And if there's 5 tournaments at once, it'll just be a bunch of whales entering all 5, potentially on multiple wallets and multiple accounts at the same time. And I don't think that necessarily fixes it. It's a difficult problem for them to sort of deal with. And I think leagues will help this a lot, where you have this sort of, there's only 2 leagues right now. When we have 5 leagues, in the bottom leagues, you could theoretically have some really great prizes up top, maybe make them really top heavy that anyone can kind of compete in that league with a relatively affordable deck. But yeah, it's definitely one of the problems that needs to be sorted. There's a lot of problems that need to be sorted if this is going to survive, like all dApps, but hopefully they can make it work.
And I think the stars are really interesting as well in balancing that ecosystem, because I was struggling to try and field like a decent team on today, just with 20 stars. It's quite constraining, but it gives like people with those that don't have the Anthems or the top players more opportunity to kind of finish in the top 100 or whatever. So it's interesting.
100%. And like on the stars thing, especially, I think what we're seeing already is there are a lot of sort of like the 2 and 3 star heroes that are like way overperforming. And so what seems to be optimal strategy is not just getting like 2 7 stars and 3 2 stars necessarily. It's like, maybe you get a bunch of 4 and 3 stars with a couple of 2 stars, something like that, where it's like the lower star heroes are just punching above their weight, which again makes it really great for those who have like lower bankrolls.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. We kind of dealt with Fancy Top, kind of from a zoomed out perspective, some of the potential, how they might make things sustainable, some of the mechanics. Want to dive in now to the details. Probably got 5 more minutes in this segment before we hit the rest of the headlines for the people tuning in. Zen, how do we want to attack this spreadsheet here? You obviously put out your daily tweet at the moment. You've got the daily spreadsheet at the same time. Do you want to speak through some of your kind of key perspectives and opinions based on the price action and your analysis in the spreadsheet from the past 24 hours?
Yeah, I mean, like past 24 and even 48 hours, we've just seen red basically across the board. There's been a handful of heroes that have outperformed and had positive days, but the market is just definitely bleeding. I think probably I think part of it is there's a lot of uncertainty around like the algorithm and how it's scoring heroes. The team has announced this algorithm change throughout the week, where theoretically sort of heroes who have larger followings, but maybe some old zombie followings that don't engage they used to be punished a lot by the algo, and now they're apparently meant to be less punished, but that's rolling out over 5 days. And so the people just don't know, is that going to make certain heroes way better? Is that going to make some of the other heroes way worse, who maybe have lower followers? And people, I think, are a little gun shy on spending big bucks with that uncertainty hanging over their heads. Coupled with just all the other issues, I think it's unsurprising that we have this sort of pullback across the board. And I think sort of moving forward, we'll probably see kind of the same that we see with NFTs, same that we see with crypto and tokens, is that the majority of value will probably pull towards fewer heroes, where there'll be some, and there clearly are some people who just don't care about the game at all. They're not engaging, they're not tweeting, they just don't care. And their prices will probably just continue to drop, and potentially, hopefully, the team comes up with some solution that sort of relegates them out, as I know you were talking about the other day as well, where, if they're not performing well, maybe they shouldn't be a hero.
I'm so for relegation.
There you go, yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's super interesting in terms of analysis. Makes sense with people being a little bit gun shy. Also, things had ripped quite aggressively, kind of been up only for a period of time. So potentially just a healthy point for it to correct a little bit. Let's get into the tournament itself. We obviously got a common only tournament coming today. I'm sure everyone wants to know, what are the top picks, how you're positioning yourself. And for this part, because we'll close this segment on this, let's go round the table on it. So we'll hear from Zen some top picks and kind of how he's positioning. Also hear from Legendary, Sammy, and we've got Pancakes up with us as well. So we'll end with him towards the end for a quick hit of strategy for today. Zen, kick us off.
Yeah, I mean, shout out to Pancakes. He's absolutely killing it, and is one of the picks, I think, to pick, because you look for the people who aren't 7 stars or even 6 stars, who have lower star values but are punching above their weight, and he's definitely in that category. Others in the category, I think, are like Crypto Kaleo, who basically was just AFK on vacation or something before the tournament, and everyone was like, "Is he going to come back? Is he going to tweet? Is he not? What's going to happen?"
Very convenient return.
Yeah, exactly. Very, very timely. who else? Elio Trades, I think, is another 2-star who's generally getting a lot more engagement. There's so many different ways to take. Like, I love this tournament more than all of the other ones because there's actual strategy involved. You have like a salary cap and you have to think, and it's not just who has the most money is going to get the top. There's genuine strategy, and like there's maybe like 20 different combinations of how you can make up to 20 stars. I even saw someone tweet about maybe you want to only enter 19 stars because then you'll have a unique deck because everyone else is entering up to 20. And there's this whole, trying to be contrarian and pick heroes that aren't picked in everyone else's decks and whether that will give you an edge. There's so much, just so many dynamic factors at play. And also, again, the algorithm is changing. No one knows who is, how it is all going to work. And people are looking at the current tournament and who's performing well as to who's going to perform in the next tournament. And then there's like some people post less on weekends and this tournament's going to run on a weekend. So the layers of strategy that there are to this game is what makes it so much fun to me. And I really hope they can sustain it because I'm having so much fun with it. But would love to hear what other people think as well because it's everyone has a different take on this.
Okay, so key interesting perspectives I took from that was lower stars outperforming, punching above their weight. And the thing that I didn't even think of, who posts on the weekend because this one runs over. So interesting little nugget of information there. Let's go round the table. Some quick hits, how you're positioning yourself. Let's start with Legendary.
Yeah, absolutely. My deck currently has a bit of overlap with what Zeneca has been sharing. I do have Pancake in there. I do have Elliot Trades in there.
Shout out Pancake.
I have a War Daddy Capital in there. I have Calio in there, and I have me. But I'm thinking to reposition that a bit. First of all, it's 19 stars. So I was thinking that this is a more unique composition than other people would use. But given that both War Daddy Capital and me are eating up 6 stars each, I do think that I might want to sub that out a bit and change it up, depending on how the hero score is evolving over the next couple of days. And I also haven't thought about that weekend point, which is a really, really good point to think about because there's definitely a couple of creators who disappear on a Friday, leave at 5 p.m. and appear at 9 a.m. in the morning on Monday again. And that's not good in terms of the tournament.
Nice. And when you say me, you don't literally mean you. We are still waiting for the legendary card in the game. That is TBD, I hope. Sammy, quick hits and then we'll hit Pancake.
So I've actually gone for a bit of a glass cannon approach, which I'm still debating as to whether it works. But DB has been he's an absolute powerhouse all day. So I think that it's either make or break. So I'll either, if he has some belters over the weekend, which I actually looked through, I got all the tweets and I put them through and analyzed how often he posted on the weekend. That's how deep I went into it.
What did you do that on ChatGPT?
I love this.
Yeah, ChatGPT. So I literally got exports of the Twitter and then did that to analyze. And they do post on the weekend, or he or whoever's behind the account. So sure. There is that if there's news. But then again, would there be news on the weekend? So it depends. He's a maybe, and I might actually put in Pac-Man if not him, just because.
Interesting.
Lowest. Well, he's still quite high stars, but if there's some news around Blast, then he quote tweets and he hits some bangers. So. Those two are the two that I could potentially swap out, but the rest are pretty much set for me. So I've got Selkis, so obviously the political stance, posting quite regularly. I think he's probably going to do well. Don't know about the weekend thing, might have to look into that. But me is like a bread and butter, you have to have him. He's just just killing it. So me 6969 or whatever his name is.
Yep.
And then Elio Trades and Calio, both 2 stars, so it kind of makes up that 20 star deck.
Interesting to think about it in themes, isn't it? It's okay, well, this guy is a political person, and I think this week might be a bit political. This guy is a trader, and Bitcoin's going to rip this week, or and therefore he might be tweeting more. So, and whereas Pac-Man is involved in all of Blur, they've just delayed. I'd love to know after the delay announcement yesterday. I don't know if someone can check this as we speak or as we go to Pancake. Did people think that did the card go down because people thought, well, maybe he won't be doing anything now because the TG has gone further out? Maybe someone could check that in the interim. Pancake, welcome to the stage, my friend. Congrats on absolutely crushing it, punching well above your weight on Fantasy Top. Give us your quick hits because we're going to get into the headlines in just a little bit, but your quick hits, quick strategy for the common only tournament today.
Sure. Yeah, I probably have the quickest hit because I don't play the game.
Oh.
So but it is interesting. So I've been talking to the team for a while, but I haven't started playing the game because I don't really have time to do that. But it's interesting because I haven't tried to grow my account in so long, and this has kind of inspired me to start
Interesting.
tweeting again. So I'm happy that it's working out, and I'm going to be distributing a lot of my funds back to my holders just because it's fun.
Nice.
But yeah, I haven't jumped into the game because I just don't have the time to really do that. I'm in the middle of a raise and all that, but I'm happy for doing well, I guess, so far.
Well, respect, man. Respect for like being part of the game and like embracing it on some level and being like, well, okay, I'm kind of inspired now to actually go out and participate and, you know, have fun with it. Because obviously we saw some people almost complain about participating, the weight of responsibility of having to do that, people complaining at them, which I'm sure would actually be practically quite annoying. But at the same time, like just looking at it through the positive frame, like your engagement's probably gone up, more people are discovering you. So I'm very pro,
Oh yeah,
like
I've gotten
looking
so many
at it from a
followers.
positive
Found
angle.
me. So many followers found me through the website. I was
Yeah,
just like,
that's
this
cool.
is cool. Like, this is fun.
Yeah, very, very cool way to frame it and think about it. So appreciate that take, Pancake. We hope you continue playing because a lot of people's bets riding on it. So let's get into the other headlines for today. Zen's obviously going to be around with us for the rest of the show to get into the other stuff. Makes sense maybe to just dive straight into Blast, actually, given that we, Fancy Top is based on Blast. People wondering if the incentives can go on when the gold runs out. The gold is not running out in some respects because there will be way more gold. Whether that's a good thing or not is what we are here to discuss. So the headline yesterday was Blast airdrop is now delayed. It was expected towards the end of May. Now it will be at the end of June, so an additional extra month. They apologized for it, they're missing their initial target. They say that the airdrop allocation will be increased to account for this. And there will be 2 final gold distributions before the airdrop. I think it's fair to say that the majority of people had factored in 0 additional airdrops, and we thought we might be able to get all the way with this current amount of gold distribution by the end of May. There's going to be 2 more now. So there has been a revision of the gold estimates from none other than NFT Stats, who we have on stage. Definitely want to go for his thoughts in a second. So that's kind of where we're at. I want to come to you first, Legendary, just for some reflection here. Like, how are you feeling about it? You're obviously in the trenches a lot. You have prioritized this a lot. Now you have an extra month. What's your reflection here?
Yeah, I mean, I've been very vocal about the fact that I think that gold inflation will increase. So I'm not surprised by this. I may be a bit surprised by that we're postponing that much. I wouldn't have expected that necessarily. Obviously, as someone who spends multiple hours a day optimizing Blast Gold strategies, it's a bit annoying from that perspective. My hope kind of is, and I mentioned it before the show, that some farmers will just give up and I can continue building on that edge. I do think that it changes a bit in my own strategy. I think now more than ever that I want to double down in terms of the jackpot on projects who have already won the jackpot, like Pack, or obviously like Fantasy Top as well, because some people have made the argument, yeah, with only 2 weeks into TGE, they don't think that Pack Moon will win a 3rd jackpot. I think now with more than a month time until June 26th, and the jackpot continuing, obviously under the assumption that it would be highly unlikely to not see triplets in terms of winners. So definitely doubling down on that side of things. I also think for people who, for example, were contemplating whether it's too late to start on things like Cambria and all other projects that are a bit progressive in the nature, where you just have a head start and you continue building that and maximizing your gold allocation and distribution, that it is a very good opportunity to get started now. Personally, I will continue to double down on that side of things as well. I also think that the blur farming aspect is getting even more interesting because there's certainly people who have been hurt massively, who lost a good amount of money, especially on those red days that we've seen
crazy.
this week in particular. Red. But there's still gold. It's still 66K gold a day that they're distributing. I don't think they will keep the 2 million. I very much agree with NFT Stats when he said that in his calculation, he allocated another extra mil on Blast Gold to be distributed to Blur. So I do still think that it is almost a requirement to not ignore the Blur farming side of things. But this is basically how I'm adjusting for that. And I mean, yes, it's a lot of extra work, of course, but I don't think that this is the time to give up, but more so double down on that.
Okay. Very, very interesting perspectives. I have some takes as well, but I think the best thing to do here is maybe go to NFT Stats Direct first, help him or allow him to kind of go through his thoughts from the last 24 hours. And then definitely want to go to Zen and Sammy to kind of get reflections on that. So welcome to the stage, Sam. Great to have you with us. How are you feeling about this Blast Gold further revision? I think it's your third revision down. How many more are we going to have? What are you thinking?
Third down. Yeah, no, thanks for having me. Zeneca, awesome to have you on this show. I come here a lot and it's great to have you. I mean, I've been tweeting kind of real-time thoughts so people can just look at my feed. I'll be honest, the main reason I was annoyed was because my estimate was wrong. You know, for me personally, it doesn't have much impact on my personal farming, because whatever. But like, I was just mainly annoyed because for some reason or another, my thing, like everyone in this kind of like content game has a thing, you know, and Zeneca's right now is distributing his spreadsheet and stuff like that. And for me lately, it's been my gold estimates. But now I'm like brought back to my Goldman Sachs research days where it's like everyone's just yelling at you because predicting the future is really fucking hard, and everyone always gets it wrong when you predict the future, especially when you got guys like Pac-Man, you know, who change things. And you know, and I guess the lesson here is that you have to build into your estimates a lot more randomness for change than otherwise, but that's a hard thing to model. So, you know, that was my main frustration when I first tweeted, like, for fuck's sake, you know, it was more just like, damn. I also, like, admittedly, I think my farm was stronger in the beginning. I'm like sick of farming.
Yes.
I got kids. I'm going out of town for June. So this is going to hurt someone like me because they're, you know, right now only half the gold that's going to be distributed has been distributed so far. So I did pretty well in the beginning, but I'm tired. For people who are like hustlers, who are like, fuck, I got in a little bit late, I want to hustle now, I'm starting to get my groove on here. Like, I'm all about fantasy, I'm all about IKB, I'm all about the ones that are working, you know, they're going to get a bigger portion. So as far as Legendary's comment, yeah, he says he knew there'd be more inflation. If you knew there's gonna be more inflation, you can call it what it is. Say there's going to be a TGE extension, because that would have gotten it right. Saying there's going to be more inflation is missing the core of what happened here. I don't think this was an intentional thing. I just think that, you know, to launch your token, you have to get legal set up. You have to get your market maker set up. You have to get your exchange set up. You know, there's a lot of negotiating that you have to get the tech right. There's, you know, and I'm sure they have to get the tech for season 2, and they want to go up with a bang. And they were probably just sitting around a table the other day being like, holy fuck, we only have 2 more weeks. And I think, you know, so I don't think this was like, oh, we want to inflate the hell out of gold, because gold inflation doesn't help them. That's the thing. It's like, you know, gold inflation really serves them no purpose. As more gold has been distributed, TVL growth has gone down. So I don't think this actually serves them well, other than the fact that they probably just realized, holy fuck, we overcommitted on time. So I don't know. That's a bunch of random thoughts. Oh, also one other thing. It was said in the Blast Discord that they would not be giving more gold to Blur, which I thought was kind of interesting. So that's 1 million gold I included in my estimate that it sounds like is wrong. And I thought that was interesting because that's the first time. Like, I think that they're just like, holy fuck, maybe we kind of fucked up with this whole Blur thing. Maybe they're just like, yeah, this is a total fucking shit show that is not doing what we intended it to. It's led to like 15 mods just getting or maybe 2 mods just getting absolutely annihilated in the Discord by people who are pissed. And it's not really serving anything other than just like an obscene amount of pump and dump. So like, maybe we'll calm down on the gold incentive. I don't know, I thought that was interesting.
Maybe we do need a calming kind of influence there. I've got one follow-up question, Sam. Then I want to go to Zen and Sam for your reflections. The one thing I haven't really seen much discussion about is the point side of things. We've all got obsessed with gold, maybe because it's called gold and maybe because it is gold. And maybe that's because that's the more active thing that you can do. Like, if you have lower capital, you can go out and try to mine the gold. But am I right in thinking, when I haven't only thought about this for a limited amount of time, this is like really good for points accruers? Because yes, it's kind of like it's better for LPs in comparison with gold. Because was that not the right way to think about it?
No, I look. I mean, gold. Everyone always asks me about points, and it's like the logic that they bring, I still struggle with. But here's what I'd say on points. Like, it's like saying that it reminds me of the fantasy announcement that they were going to start helping, like, with that bigger counts are going to be fine. We're going to stop nerfing big counts, but we're also going to reward small accounts. Well, you can't have both. Right? The algo, this is a zero-sum game. Like, someone benefits and someone does not. So like, if you're still going to boost like the ward addies, then that's going to be bad for Zeneca. Like, I don't understand how you can have both. How that relates here is that, like, someone benefits and someone loses from every change. Who benefits here? Actually, it's meme land. And the reason I say meme land is because meme land in March or April, we decided to put a lot of our treasury into Blast. The problem is we're so far behind, like the Machis, the OSFs, who put all their money in at the very beginning, right? So we only have 2 months to catch up to what they had, even though we put a lot of treasury in. Now we have 1 more month to catch up. So this is going to benefit people who add money later. Those are the people who benefit and get more of that points allocation. So yeah,
love it. I just want to maybe bring out one thing.
It hurts people. It also hurts people who had it in earlier. And that's the common theme here. One of the things I tweeted about yesterday is, if you remember season 2 of Blur, me and Zen did a podcast together back then, actually talking about the beginning of season 2. But if you remember back then, Pac-Man came out and said, hey, we're doing 2x points for the first month for farmers. And then, people, and like Machi came in, went super hard, lost a lot of money, but he was getting that 2x point bonus. And then after a month, they said, actually, we're going to make this 2x thing go on another month. And then it increasingly became clear that it was permanent and there was no benefit at all. And Machi actually tweeted about it a lot because he responded to that promise for benefits to early people. The fact is, these platforms have incentive to benefit later people, because what's done is done in the beginning, and they want to keep getting more and more money. So it's the early guys that ultimately get diluted. And I think that's becoming a regular thing.
That's a great point to keep in mind. Thanks for sharing all of that, Sam. Really, really helpful. I want to take one of those parts and throw it to Zen. Sam mentioned the feeling that of like needing to catch up. It's like, okay, this person put this amount in at this point in time. Now we need to catch up. Like, obviously, that's kind of something that exists in your own head, right? You're kind of putting that pressure onto yourself. You mentioned earlier, Zeneca, about the risk management side. Things are going pretty wild on Blast. Things are up really aggressively. They're down really aggressively. First, just like any reflections on the conversation we've had so far, and then B, like, how are you managing that risk and that kind of appetite to need to catch people up at all? Like, are you pretty calm with what you've got? How are you thinking about that from that perspective?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I agree with everything Sam said, as usual. This is really hurting the earlier participants and rewarding those who maybe feel like they do need to catch up, which is kind of counter to how crypto has historically been, where like most airdrops are retroactive airdrop. Like most big significant airdrops are the ones that, people were using the protocol early and they get the biggest allocation. People that try and like farm it right at the end usually get a little bit more screwed over. And this is kind of flipping it on its head, but it does make a lot of sense when you look at it from the perspective of Blast, or a protocol that is trying to maximize users and TVL, because they've already hooked all the people that were early. They've been there since day one. They've been waiting for this TGE, these tokens, these points. They're accruing up, and like it's very unlikely for those people to just bounce out and like disappear. What they want is new users and new people joining and adding money and farming. And I think this does get them that. Exactly for the reason where you have the people that donated 1,000 ETH, or not donated, deposited 1,000 ETH on day one and accrued a bunch of points. Now you have a 12x multiplier. So if, you might not be able to catch up to them, but you can reduce the percentage gap between how far ahead they are. And we potentially have the multiplier could get up to 24x, because if you look on the Blast website, there's another 6 cards to unlock. And that's really, I think, I personally, I sold a bunch of stuff on other chains and NFTs and stuff, and deposited a whole bunch of ETH, 3 weeks ago, because I realized the multiplier now makes it more reasonable, because I do feel like I can catch up or get, a little bit more than I could have 3-4 months ago. And I think that's sort of a sentiment that a lot of people are having as well. Yeah, I mean, I think that, I don't know, it's it's just chaos. I don't know what else to say. It's, you can try and predict it, and it's just chaos and utter madness. And I think you just have to embrace it and go in by, obviously there's very real and very significant amounts of money at play here. But I think that you have to just expect that you have to expect the unexpected and expect that crazy stuff's going to happen. And the last thing on the risk side of things you mentioned, yes, there's some crazy high risk things on Blast. The farming Blur is crazy. New protocols are crazy. There's smart contract risk, but there are relatively low risk things as well, insofar as just holding some USDB on whatever protocol that has had its contract very much vetted in order to just even in your wallet and earning some yield. There's a bunch of ways you can quote unquote farm. You might not max out the amount of points or gold you'll get for your dollar value, but it's on the lower risk side. And I think one nice thing about the whole ecosystem is that there's something for everyone. Like if you have $0 to your name, you can still farm Blast. You can tweet about PackMoon. You can go into District 1 spaces. You can create content for other protocols. You can get some money, and that's amazing. And if you have $10 million, you can still earn. And so if you have a lot of money and no time, there's options for you. And if you have all the time in the world and no money, there's a lot of options and everything in between. And I think that's one kind of cool thing about it all.
Very nice point. Haven't dwelt on that too much. Sam, you want to come in?
Yeah, I just want to jump in on two things. First of all, the multipliers actually don't matter because they affect everyone equally. So it's kind of like, I was in an investment where everyone who's early got a warrant, and then they realized that everybody who was an investor was also early, so the warrants were meaningless, so they got rid of the warrants. Like it's the same thing as this multiplier. Like everyone gets the multiplier. The only people sorry, I'm still sick. Sorry. The only impact it has is that it hurts people who are paying zero attention. So maybe that's like 1% to 2%, but you dilute the shit out of yourself if you don't do the multipliers. So it really should impact everyone entirely evenly. And it just like gives them a tool to force everyone to try Blur, to try a DEX. So that is one thing. I think a lot of these things are just total shenanigans that like don't really impact, but are confusing the shit out of people. That's one thing. The second thing, at the end of the day, like I just don't think Pac-Man is someone who's historically valued loyalty. He's just someone who has valued how can I optimize for this moment right here, right now. And it's okay, I want more people. I got to do these things to get more people. Again, I don't think that's why he did this. I don't think this is going to help him get more people. But the decisions he's made in the past just like haven't shown a real follow through when it comes to like, oh, that's someone who helped me 6 months ago. So I want to make decisions that benefit them because I value loyalty more than whatever optimizes for this being worth the most. And to be honest, one could argue that's one of the reasons he's a very investable founder. But I just think that's what's going on.
Okay. Awesome takes. Appreciate that, Sam. Final take from Sammy. Maybe a practical one, purely opinion. How are you going to respond to this delay, Sammy?
Well, I think there's a lot of talk about people being burnt out, and I think it's just picking a farm or a game or something that you're really passionate about, because I think you will probably go further than the next person by doing that. So I think that's the OP strategy. For me personally, that's Cambria, it's Fantasy Top, it's like I'm sick of just clicking buttons for the sake of clicking buttons and doing it in a linear fashion where you have to do the same number of clicks from the previous couple of distributions for the next 3. Whereas I think if you look for dApps that are compounding your work in previous distributions that then matter in future ones, then you've also got that benefit where you're not actually getting that diluted because you have people coming in that have to do the same amount of effort you did before just to catch up. So it's looking for specific dApps and how they're rewarded. And that'll be how I'll be looking at it going forward.
A little bit of specialization, I think, makes sense. Okay, we got one more key topic for today. We want to get into it in just a little bit to do with angel investing and the Pudgy Penguins deal flow sharing. Before we do that, we're going to hit the Web3 Roundup from the snapshot. As always, get you up to speed with everything else that's been happening in the space in case you missed it. Here we go. Number 1, Millennium Management disclosed a $2 billion BTC ETF holding, likely part of a carry trade. NFT Stats pointed that out when people were getting a little bit too excited about the fact a hedge fund was holding a lot of Bitcoin. Number 2, Crypto Valley's yield token wins the blast jackpot and sells off basically immediately again, although there was some gains across the blast ecosystem yesterday in terms of the meme coins. Next, Runes bounce up with Pups up 50%, Arctic up 11%, Decentralized up 20% yesterday. And finally, Lido co-founders and Paradigm back an eigenlayer restaking competitor. I think it was obviously going to be the case that more people want to build those protocols when they see how much value is there to be had. So that is interesting to see. Final few pieces of news. Andrew Tate announces he will leave fiat completely and buy $100 million of Bitcoin. Very influential on various timelines, so interesting to note that. Next, Xcopy Mortal 1 of 10 receives a $180,000 loan for 1 year at 12.5% APR. That's pretty significant on the art side. And also on the art side, Artblocks announces AB Studio, a place for artists to self-publish. Pretty interesting to see what Artblocks continue to put out there. So that's the Web3 roundup. We've got a few minutes left and we want to touch on the final headline for today. We're not going to get into crypto price action. Yes, everything's up a lot more than it was yesterday. I think that's self-evident, and people were maybe overreacting when we were down. No need to overreact and discuss to death when we are up. The final headline for today then, which we've got a few minutes to talk about, we'll go to Legendary first, is this piece of news where Luca Netz tweeted this. He said, Net's deal flow and a little handshake emoji, penguin holders, showing that on screen for the people watching on YouTube and X. And that was quote tweeting a tweet from Echo, which was the Pudgy Penguins igloo. For the people who don't know, Echo is like a crypto crowdsourcing platform where you can share deal flow with other people, or particular groups that you let in, kind of created to democratize deal flow and make sure it's not always going to the same people over and over and over again. Seen as like a very nice democratizing factor. Looks like Luca is intending to share deal flow here. Legendary, just want to come to you first on like what your thoughts are on this. Any thoughts on investing in this particular time of the market? Then want to go to Zeneca with kind of the same question on where we are with angel investing at the moment.
I think per se it's a beautiful idea. Like, I don't want to sound cynical about it, but democratizing access to investments is super, super important, not only in crypto, but per se, like enabling people to be able to participate in such opportunities. But practically, it is something that's incredibly hard to achieve. Like, even if you look at Pudgy Penguins, you have 5K holders, you get you get an allocation of 1 mil in an interesting race. That's $200 per holder. That's obviously not everyone's going to participate. I'm oversimplifying that to make the point that I'm trying to get across.
Yes,
that's very hard because deals are relatively on the smaller side. At least some of the interesting rounds and races that are going on, you're definitely not going to be able to get in a seed round and offer that to 5K Pudgy holders who just won't be able to offer the value that other participants can offer for that same allocation of $1 or $2 million. And
it's hard to make it meaningful with that number of people.
It's hard to make it meaningful with that number on both sides, on the investment side of things, but also for the companies who are picking the people who want to invest in them. Whereas there's a way simpler mechanism to achieve that, which has been used, which is just give an airdrop to holders, and then they will be happily tweeting about you and be trending on the timeline. So again, I like the idea. I think it's a bit idealistic, and sometimes you need idealistic things like that, but it's very, very hard to turn it into meaningful practice, especially when I heard from so many founders that they will always have a preference in this space for KOL rounds because they get just relatively and significantly more attention. And this is the way how they see the cookie crumbling. And again, you still have the airdrop distribution mechanism if you want to reach the broad masses.
Interesting take. I hadn't thought about it from the practical perspective. I was thinking of something else, but I think that's pretty valid. Zeneca, definitely want to come to you, maybe a reflection on that, but also maybe more broadly, like, where are we in the market for angel investing? I know you've done a hell of a lot. We've kind of started for the first time in this cycle too, noticing some challenges appear in that particular market. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I started late 2021, early 2022, and did about maybe 10, 15 investments back then in 2022. And then in the last sort of 6 months, I've done another 70 or something. So I kind of went crazy from late 2023. But I basically stopped a month ago. I decided, you know what, I'm in too many. The later you get in the cycle, the more risky it gets, because as the tokens vest, you might run the risk of being further into a bear market. And there's just way too many of these rounds going around. And like this, the prevailing thought I think I'm seeing around now is like, who's going to be buying these tokens? Who's going to be buying these tokens in the future? And I think that that is an accurate thing to be thinking about with a lot of these. Now, obviously, some of these are hopefully going to be very valuable protocols that build meaningful products that develop users and have longevity. But just the nature of crypto is that, and companies and startup investing, is that most of them are just not gonna make it. And the whole thing is, angel investing is incredibly risky. I think people look at it and be like, oh, if you got in on Portal, you would have made a 50x and it's so easy and stuff. But like, you know, for every Portal, there's 50 others that don't perform as well. And it's one of those high risk, high variance plays where you really just, you know, you invest in 100 things and hope that, you know, 5 to 10 pay off for the other 90, which you'll probably lose some money on. And you can pick and choose, and you can definitely get an edge by being strategic and smart about the ones you invest in, doing your due diligence and looking at tokenomics and stuff like that. But it's definitely getting tougher, and I've basically decided more or less to stop. And on the Echo and the Pudgy news, I think it is really cool that we are democratizing access to these things. But I think it's also risky because a lot of people look at it and be like, oh, I want to get in on the next Portal. And they might just throw money at all these random projects. And the projects themselves are getting increasingly predatory with, you know, higher valuations and worse tokenomics. And it's just getting riskier. And yeah, so great idea in theory. And I think on the whole, getting the Pudgies involved side, I think it's one thing to airdrop to people, but if you ask people to pay $200, I think there's a different level of emotional and financial investment. So there's probably a little more likely to push your thing, whereas most people get an airdrop like, oh, free money, I'm going to sell it. It's no longer quote unquote free money. It'd be cool to see how it plays out, but yeah, I think it's all risky business nowadays.
Very, very interesting to hear your perspective on that. I think we've kind of been expressing relatively similar perspectives over the last few weeks. We do want to close. We have to close in just a couple of minutes. Pancake, want to give you a quick opportunity here to give your perspective on the Angel side. I heard you mentioned you would just be raising at the moment. Give us a quick take and help us close the show here.
Yeah, sure. I've actually only angeled 2 companies this cycle, so I'm not super into that side of things, but I do think the Echo perspective is interesting because, you know, sure, there's 5,000 Pudgy holders, but you still need an invite to Echo, and there's still like a questionnaire process and all that, and then even the deal flows, like there's still vesting terms and all these different factors that go into it. So I don't think it's necessarily fair to say like, oh, okay, the deal flows will be broken up among 5,000 people. Like, it's not for everybody. Like, angeling isn't for everybody. I think it's just a way for Luca to give his holders a potential chance to get access to this deal flow. I don't think it'll be nearly the entire holder base that will be participating. It'll be a good experiment, and I think Kobe's going to do a good job, him and his team, of vetting the companies that get syndicated. But I'm bullish on it, just overall.
Awesome, man. I very much appreciate that perspective. That is super helpful. But guys, that is our show for today. Just a reminder, we do this every single day, Monday to Friday, 7 a.m. Eastern time for 1 hour. We deal with everything to do with the modern market. That is the crypto market, the NFT market, and how to make some or a lot of money on the internet. Again, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you to my legendary co-host, Legendary, and Sammy. Thank you to our special guest today, Zeneca. It's been an absolute pleasure. And thank you to the rest of our contributors. We had NFT Stats and Pancakes dropping the gems as well today. Zen, thanks so much for joining us, man. We'd love to have you back anytime.
Thank you so much for having me. Cheers, everyone.
Thanks for joining us, guys. Remember, we'll be back again tomorrow. We wish you have a wonderful day. Take care and bye-bye.